Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. So we're going to carry on our sharing the teachings and the learnings of yoga philosophy. We've been, for the past few sessions, exploring the 8 limbs of yoga. And if you've missed a few sessions, we will have all those uploaded in the YouTube in the next few days. And we've been exploring the 8 limbs of yoga. And just to recap a little bit, the 8 limbs of yoga is just another tool that Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras shares with us as a way to explore yoga, as a way of learning yoga, as a way of going through this process of living yoga rather than just doing yoga. Yoga is such a vast subject in so many areas, and the Yoga Sutras covers just part of it. And then we have many other Vedic scriptures that cover many other sections of yoga. And then we also have different styles of yoga. We have Karma Yoga, Tantra Yoga, Kriya Yoga, and they are all ways for us to explore ourselves, to understand about ourselves, to understand about life. And they all give us tools for us to do some introspective, some understanding, some exposure to what is in us that we need to learn about ourselves. And the 8 limbs of yoga is just a little bit of the practice in the Yoga Sutras. And inside of the 8 limbs, we then have little branches. So the first limb is the Yama, which is to do with social discipline. Yama in itself means not to give in, to restrain yourself, to stop yourself, not to give in. And Yama has to do with the way that we behave, that we interact with our environment. And that's not just friends and family, but everything around us, from the nature to animals. And also there is a certain level of it in relation to how we behave towards ourselves. So not just exterior, but also interior. The first branch of Yama is ahimsa, and ahimsa is non-violence. And non-violence here is not so much about the physical violence, but it's more about not wanting to cause pain. Because very often, and especially now in our society, maybe not so much in the caveman or a few hundred years ago, physical violence is not so required nowadays. But what we still do a lot is verbal, thoughts, actions. And through our words, through our actions, through our behaviors, we still cause pain to others and to us. So the ahimsa is to remind us that we should not be causing pain. And actually, the Buddhists have a really good kind of tip or tool, which is, before you speak, is it useful? Is it going to be helpful? If it's going to hurt, don't speak. If it's going to be useful and helpful and make someone happy, speak. And this is a bit in line with ahimsa, which is, if you're going to be causing pain to an animal, to the nature, to someone, then don't do it. Or you're going to be causing pain to yourself, because this also happens, that we don't want to be causing pain to others. So we're going to say like, okay, yes, I'll go with you to whatever place. But then we are actually feeling really bad because we don't want to go to that place. We don't like that place. There's something there that doesn't feel good with us, and we are causing pain to ourselves. So there's also these two sides that we want to consider. Then we have satya. Satya is truthfulness. And although this seems quite very obvious, why wouldn't we be true to everyone? Why would we be lying? We're not kids anymore. When we're kids, we lie a bit more because we are scared, or we have that, we are still trying to affirm ourselves in our social environment. But once we are adults, why do we lie? But the reality is that we still lie a lot. We lie not in the sense of, oh, I'm conscious about lying, but without knowing, we are not speaking our truth. So sometimes we pretend to be a certain person at work because we want to make sure we defend ourselves or we protect ourselves. Sometimes we don't want to get anyone upset, so we end up saying yes or saying no or saying something just so that, you know, we don't want to the person to get upset or we don't want to cause any conflict. We also sometimes, because of society, because of culture, end up working or doing things we don't want to do. It has nothing to do with us. Either it is having a friend that we actually don't really connect, don't gel with, or having a job that pays the bills. So being truthful is in relation to all of this. And what Patanjali shares in the Yoga Sutras is that the more you practice being true to yourself, which is speaking the truth, and we've done a lot of the meditation on the chakra, on the throat chakra last week, which was about speaking our truth, self-expression. So speaking our truth, following our dreams, finding exactly what it is, our purpose in this life, being honest, 100% honest to ourselves and to everyone else. And Patanjali explains that every time we practice this more and more and more and more and more, life starts to become effortless. What it means is that you then stop running after life, running after things. Everything comes to you. And this applies not only for good things, but also bad things. So you come into this place where even just by talking and thinking about stuff, they happen to you. And this is what he talks about: the more true you are to yourself, the more life happens to you. I mean, for you rather than to you. So life happens for you rather than to you. And then we have asteya. Asteya is non-stealing, not being greedy. And this is not so much in terms of, you know, stealing a house, because the majority of us don't do that, but reaching for things outside to give us pleasure on the inside, not being content with what we have. So we've done a little exercise, I think was when we did the rituals, the morning rituals, where we talked about being grateful, about getting up in the morning or before we go to bed, list the things we are grateful, because it is very easy in nowadays to be always thinking about the things we are not happy about, the things that we don't have. Because unfortunately, you know, the technology, the information around us is all the time telling us, you need this, you need the latest iPod, you need the holiday, I don't know where, to be happy and to feel good. You need, I don't know, these clothes to feel amazing. So there's constantly this information bombarding us, telling us what we need to feel better, to feel happier, thinner, smarter, whatever it is. So very often we tend to also only focus about the things we don't have rather than the ones we have. So non-stealing is more about being grateful for everything we have. Is also about not stealing energy from other people. Very often, and this happens in family, happens at work, sometimes we are so annoyed with our lives, or something is going on, or we are stressed about something, and we end up bringing everyone into our dramas, into our stress, into our self-inflicted anxiety. And this is also, asteya is also about that, not stealing other people's energy. And of course, you know, it is important to purify our throat chakra, that if we feel not good with certain emotions, if we don't feel good with certain situations in our life, we need to talk about it, we need to recognize it, we need to express it. But here what we're talking about is really being so enveloped in our drama that we drag everyone else to our drama. Yeah, so that's asteya. And then we have brahmacharya. Brahmacharya, it is non-excesses, non-excess, continence, so hold ourselves back. And this can be, this is probably the one that the society nowadays could do with more, because we exaggerate in many things. So we eat too much, or drink too much, or work too much, or sleep too much, or don't sleep enough. So there is a culture of excesses, basically. And Brahmacharya tells us that we need to slow down, we need to contain ourselves from wanting more. I want more money, I want a better job title, I want more clothes, I want more this, I want more that. And it goes in line with asteya in terms of being content with what we have rather than wanting what we don't have. But we've all been there, we've all been through situations where we were eating or drinking too much or working too much. And what yoga teaches about this is once we start to bring awareness to the excesses. So this whole process of learning yoga has to start with being aware. That's why it's so good to meditate. It is amazing to do the yoga poses because you are enhancing your ability to be aware of your body, of your breath, of your feelings. So in class, when you're doing down dogs, warrior ones, and so on, and we're bringing you to your breath, to the poses, to feel the muscles, to feel the leg and the arms, is just for you to start being more aware of what's happening in your body and in your mind. So from the moment you start to be a lot more aware, you start to be aware of your excesses. Oh, I'm eating too much. I'm having the desire to go and get drunk. I feel like going and dancing and, you know, all night, and I don't go out dancing every week, but this week I just want to go crazy and dance all night. So that's a bit of an excess. So it's these things. We need to start bringing awareness to these things. And then once we know, we can start changing our habits. So this process of yoga, going through the 8 limbs, is to bring the awareness. The other side of the excesses is to manage our energy. Especially in our day-to-day lives, we sometimes have these to-do lists, and these to-do lists have like 36 things to do, which we know we're not going to be able to do them, but somehow we just keep them there in case, because we have to do them. And then we end up self-inflicting all this anxiety, all this stress in ourselves, because we have this huge list of things to do, which we know it's not going to be possible because the day only have 24 hours, plus you need to sleep and eat and go to the toilet and all of those things. So it's all also about managing your energy. And this process, now that we've been on the lockdown, has been really good to practice Brahmacharya, because we've gone through the beginning of the lockdown where we're all kind of still, you know, it's something new and it's exciting or funny, or, you know, this transition of being at home, you know, working from home, adjusting to this process, going to the supermarket almost empty, but we need to queue up at the door, you know, all of these things. And then we go through that phase where suddenly we have a lot more time in our hands, because we are not doing lots of the things we used to do, or we're not traveling as much as we used to travel. Then we go into that energy where we suddenly start to feel bored. It's been a while, it's not new anymore, and, you know, all this energy starts to come in. And now this lockdown is a great opportunity to manage our energy, not to go into excesses, and to allow yourself also an adjustment period, like everything, you know. A car needs an adjustment period. A car doesn't start straight away in gear number five. Has to go into first, and then second, and then maybe third, and then possibly a fourth, and so on. And as is the same thing. And then when you want to stop a car, you can stop in emergency stop, like we have. Human body has an emergency stop. We fall sick, we have a fall, we stop, no problem. A car also can do emergency stop, but ideally if you want a healthy stop, you want to reduce down the gears. You are in 5, so let me start to slow down. Maybe I've been a bit too high energy and I'm starting to feel like it's a bit too much for what it's needed. And then the next one is aparigraha. Aparigraha is non-attachment. This is the last one of the Yama, of the first limb of yoga. Also another one which applies a lot to the society nowadays. And it's amazing because all of these, they have been created or, you know, developed by the sages 5,000 years ago or more. And they still all apply to today's society. Some of them maybe more than others. Some of them we relate more in certain parts of our life. But it's amazing that they still apply. So yes, so aparigraha is non-attachment, is non-hoarding. So we've touched a little bit on this thing of wanting things, you know, wanting material things. And very often we start to be dependent on those material things for our happiness. If we don't have, if we forgot the mobile phone at home, oh my God, no, I can't be without my mobile phone. I need to find a way to go back home. Or the mobile phone is out of battery. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? I need to find the charger somewhere. I need to find a way of charging my mobile phone. It's also job titles. You know, we strive, we want to work towards that job title. We don't manage our energy. So brahmacharya, it's all over the place, no manage of the energy, go in full excess to get the job title. Maybe asteya or satya, truthfulness, is not there as well, because maybe to get the job title that we want and the job that we want, we might actually not be really true to ourselves. And then the money, you know, we just never happy with the money. We want more money, because then we get used to have that money and fulfill our life by the amount of money we receive. And now we want more so that we can hoard more. Lots of material things. Attachment to people. Attachment to people manifests in ways of wanting to please your boss, wanting to please family, wanting to please friends. Attachment to partners. Very often we put our happiness in the hands of the partners. You don't make me happy. You have upset me. You this, you that, and so on. Conflicts. We usually get attached to conflict. So we have maybe a little disagreement with someone, a little argument, and then we replay this disagreement, this argument over and over again, a week later, a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later. And, you know, I'll give you an example. This week, I think was on Wednesday, the class on Wednesday. I don't know why, but Ian was teaching, I was practicing, and something, which I still haven't figured out what was it, something triggered a conflict that happened last year, I think October, November time. And it was just replaying. And the whole class, I was like, come on, breathe. You know, why are you replaying this thing that happened, I don't know when, and, you know, it doesn't really, but it was really a challenge. And I think maybe by the time I got to Shavasana, I was a bit more disconnected, but it was still lingering, you know, it was still lingering. So this happens. And, you know, even though sometimes when you do the work yourself, and I've been doing this work for long, you still caught in this attachment to the conflicts or to things that happen to you. Then we also have attachment to cultural things or educational things, like attachment to Christmas or birthdays, you know, the age, you know, how old I am or how young I am, and attachment to a physical image, attachment to being part of a certain country, of a certain culture, of a certain religion. And what yoga teaches about this is that before I was Portuguese, before I was, I don't know, Catholic, which I'm not, but at some point my parents were, so I was a human being. And that's what yoga teaches is. Religion is fine, being Portuguese or English or whatever it is fine. But before all of that, you were a human being, completely neutral, completely naked, with no influences, no impressions. We use a lot of this word in yoga, no impressions, no concepts from a religion, from a country, from politics, from education, nothing. And yoga doesn't tell us to disregard those things. It doesn't tell us not to believe in certain things, but what it does is always go back to your neutral state. They call it equanimity, where you are not one or the other, you're just neutral. Because in that place where we are neutral, there is no conflict. And I'll read you a bit here about the Yoga Sutras, where he talks about this conflict and then what happens with the mind. And so, yes, so we have to find that place who we were before we became this person we are today. And of course, we have personality traits, we have certain energies. You know, when we talk about chakras, we all have certain energies that we are more drawn to or less drawn to. Some people have more of a tendency to be vibrant, energetic, positive, extroverted, social, and so on. Other people have more the energy and the tendency to be shy, like to be alone, and so on. But the essence of us, it's all the same. And in yoga, it is considered that your soul, whilst your body is completely new and your mind is completely new, your soul brings a past. And a past comes from different lives. It's not so much about reincarnation, but yoga believes that we are part of a much greater thing, which is called consciousness. This consciousness is a field of energy that exists and includes everything that exists: planets, air, water, earth, trees, aliens, thoughts, pollution, everything. This conscious has everything. And yoga considers that we are part of that conscious. So when we are born, our soul is the thing that is never dies. That's why in yoga, you, with the practice of yoga, and of course, you know, it depends which path you take, you lose the fear of dying, because you know that what dies is your body and this kind of more physical, material being that it's in the world, but your soul never dies. Okay, I'm going to read you the part where Patanjali explains aparigraha with an example. Many times we get gifts that are merely an advance for a future obligation. One day someone comes to us with a gift, and the next day he or she telephones to say, "Remember that gift I gave you? Well, could you please do a little something for me?" We feel obliged to do that then. Even the Internal Revenue Service This is like an inland revenue, you know, the tax man he's talking about, won't accept business gifts as being tax deductible because they aren't a real donation. They are only given to get something in return. A donation means something given just for the sake of giving, not for name, money, or publicity. Accepting gifts binds us and makes us lose our neutrality. The mind will say, you receive a gift from him, how can you say something against him? On the other hand, if we are strong enough to remain free of obligation, we can accept gifts. Phil, I am giving her an opportunity to use her money in the right way, but I am not obligated by this gift. She shouldn't come to me tomorrow for an obligation. Then we are not bound. When the mind becomes this calm and clear by being free of desires and obligations, we gain the capacity to see how our desires caused our present birth. We directly see the cause and effect relationship because we are detached from it. We are no longer bound up with it. So here he explains the thought process of the mind, because, you know, regardless of how you want to feel, the mind has the ego, and the ego will always be having thoughts of you are better than anyone else, you are not good enough, you should have done this, you should have done that, and so on. And the ego is, it's an identity in itself, and it's always an identity that will always be looking for approval, will always be looking for confirmation. So for instance, if we are feeling a bit fat, we are feeling a bit like out of shape or something like that, your ego, if you know your ego governs your life, your ego during the next few days will give you lots of proofs to confirm that you are out of shape. You see a croissant, chocolate croissant, you can't resist the chocolate croissant, you eat the chocolate croissant, and the ego is gonna go like, you see, I told you, you're out of shape, you can't do diets, you're not good, blah 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 blah. You had to run to the bus stop, you're a bit out of breath, your ego goes, you see, you're too heavy, your bum is too heavy, you're out of shape, you can't even run to the bus stop. And yoga doesn't tells us kill the ego, the ego, or stop it, or shut it down, or send him away, or on holidays. No, what yoga teaches us is to be able to be aware and then control and decide which one to hear. Do I hear the ego, or do I hear the true self? Do I follow what the ego is telling me, or do I follow the truth, the reality? And we've all had this situation between friends very often. Let's say, or even, I don't know, at work sometimes, you do something that was really good, a presentation, or you work in a project, or you've done a really good job. And everyone around you, people that are really true to yourself, really honest, really good people, they say to you, you've done so well, this is so good, you know, well done, this is amazing, oh my God, I'm so impressed, you know, I'm so proud, blah, 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 blah. And you to yourself, you're saying, oh no, this was horrible, I didn't like it, and it was not good enough, and oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, and so we have the reality is actually clear to everyone else that we've done a good job, but the ego is saying, no, you didn't do a good job, you should have done better. And this is where we have the two worlds where we can start to see, okay, what's really happening here? Did I really do a bad job and these people are lying? And then you can see whether they are lying, they are doing people pleasing. or you really did a bad job and your ego is maybe just exaggerating a little bit, because sometimes things are not that bad. Ego likes to make it really bad. And whatever it is, even if you've done not such a great job, for sure you've done everything you could with what you had. And this is another influence from Buddhists, where where Buddhists teach we are all doing the best we can, because no one conscious, majority of the people, no one in their perfect conscious will just do a crappy job or a horrible thing intentionally. We do the best we can with what we have, depending on how we feel emotionally or what we have in terms of things around us. And this brings us to feeling compassionate about ourselves, feeling forgiving ourselves with all our defects and all our issues and limitations and problems and things like that. So that's aparigraha. Aparigraha, it is the last branch of Yama. Next week, we're going to talk about Yama, which is the self-discipline. So we're going to look into the ways that we can bring more awareness on ourselves. And that's it. We're finished for today.